in the west we read the lines. In the east we read between the lines. And to receive the blessing of the elders. Hindi is your mother. English is the Bahu. Kumani is then your heartland. If you stand on Mount Everest, we will be one of your sponsors, and you will hold an ILC flag on the top of Mount Everest. क्या आप लोग मच्छर खाते हैं?
Welcome back to the second episode of The Heart of Kumaun. Today we got a special guest, Mr.Sindre Vetvik from Norway. He was born in Shetland, is a part of Scotland, but he moved to Norway when he was 16 years old. In 1997 he got married, and in 1999 he moved to India. In his initial 7 to 8 years he lived in Ranikhet, and from 2007 to up to now he's living in Pithoragarh. It's been an incredible journey for him to stay in Kumaun and be here and started his business. In 2007 he started ILC, it is Learning Institute in Pithoragarh. And in 2021 he started Integ, which is a consultancy company. And along with it he leads a tour group. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
How are you, sir?
Very well, thanks.
Yeah, it's a privilege to have you here in our show. And this is our second episode of The Heart of Kumaun.
Good.
And I've heard that you've been living here for more than 24 years now. Am I right?
That's correct.
Yeah. How has your time been in Kumaun so far, sir?
My time in Kumaun has been an amazing journey. It's been like an adventure. There have been all sorts of challenges, obviously, we faced being a Norwegian, trying to adjust and live in a foreign culture. But what we found in Kumaun is that the people are very sincere, and you know, we have made family here. We have people who, my kids called Mosi, we have brothers, we have sisters, we have mothers, you know, so we've been very, very blessed to have an amazing experience of the Kumauni hospitality.
Yeah.
So as a guest of Kumaun, I would say that that's been one of the major high points of living in Kumaun has been the hospitality and the people, how well we've been received. And also, as I mentioned, it's been an adventure to learn a new culture, a new language, to learn Hindi, and to explore most of Kumaun. I've been almost in every corner of Kumaun in these years. In the mountains, I've done a lot of trekking. So my years in Kumaun have been an amazing journey.
Yeah. I heard that you in your initial days you're working with the Himalayan adventurous trek, some sort of company. Can you share your experience with the trekking there?
Yeah, so we've worked for all of these years with a Norwegian trekking company called Surajs.
Okay, Surajs.
Yeah, and this company has focused on sending groups here to the Kumaun Himalayas in order to do trekking. So we do treks, you know, from everything from 2,000 meters to 4,800 meters.
Okay.
Up to the Pindari Glacier, we've been up to Dharma Valley in the Pithoragarh district. So this company has given us the opportunity to explore the mountains and to do a lot of trekking. So I know the mountains very well. I call the White Mountains my office.
Wow.
That's where I feel most comfortable with a group up in the mountains, up on the mountain top, preferably having my feet planted in snow, looking at the views together with people from other countries. So the trekking, which we've been a part of, has been very good. It's been a good experience. At the same time, I would say one of the things which I'm a bit saddened by is the fact now that many of the trekking routes have disappeared because there are roads everywhere now. And obviously I understand, you know, that for a village it's a big deal to get a road. It means a lot to be able to transport people to hospital, closer to education. That's very good, of course. But we have to walk further and further to get to treks. There are less and less opportunities. So that would be the drawback, I'd say, but all in all, these years of trekking has really been a wonderful nature experience. The nature which we have up here in the Kumaun Himalayas is very unique. there are very few tourists. We're generally on our own. It's not been exploited for tourism. You don't walk in a queue. That's all things which we appreciate as well. And when we've been up in the mountains trekking, we've always connected well with the local people, like our Kacharwala or Gadiwala.
You also know Hindi?
Yeah, I speak a bit of Hindi.
Okay.
So these connections with the local people have made the difference.
Indeed. I had a story, you know, that you were, not story, but it's incident, you know, that like you were born in Shetland, but when you were 16 years old, and then you moved to Norway. So how was your experience? How was your childhood, sir?
My childhood was very good.
Okay.
I grew up in a small island, as you mentioned, Shetland, that belongs to Scotland, Great Britain. And growing up in Shetland was quite an adventure also. It's a small island, only 23,000 people. And it's a simple place to grow up.
23,000.
And every winter we would have such bad weather, storms, rain, terrible weather. In the summers, when it crossed 12 degrees, people would put their t-shirts on because they felt it was warm weather. So it was a small community, a tight-knit community. Maybe somehow the same feeling which you'd have in a village.
So was it so difficult for you to move from Shetland to Norway? You were only 16 years old.
It was an adjustment.
Okay.
I had to learn language again, and you know, it was an adjustment, definitely.
Yeah, I heard that because of a teacher changed your life.
That's right.
Would you like to share this this incident?
This was actually when I was probably 18 years old or 17 years old when I'd moved to Norway to pursue an education in Norway. And when I came to Norway, I'd been part of a school system in the UK, which was very strict, very disciplinarian, and I had had a very poor experience of school growing up. I didn't have much confidence. And one day this teacher came to me during when I was doing my degree, and he looked me in the eye, and I remember what he said to me. He said, like, Sindre, if you try hard, I think you can do really well.
Wow. It's nice.
And it was, and then somehow, you know, that changed something in my heart that made me, something turned around, and I just started studying very hard. I started reading, you know, my school books. I started preparing for exams, and amazingly, when I went out of college, I went out with the highest grades in my class. And so that was a big turnaround for me, and I think that's the first time where I really understood the power of a teacher. And maybe that's what inspired me and has inspired me through these years of being in India and having some tasks as a teacher here, has been understanding that a teacher can really be a person who transforms lives.
Definitely. The power of words can change, and definitely. So, sir, you have lived in different areas. You have been living here now more than 24 years. You lived in Shetland, you were born
That's
there.
right.
And then you lived in Norway. And what's the difference between living in Norway and living in Kumaun? So,
there are huge differences. They're really huge, and culture is very different, and communication is very different. Let me give an example of communication. In Norway, we are very direct with our communication. So we have a high value of saying what you mean with as few words as possible. You know, we're a time-based culture, like a schedule-based culture, where respecting people's time is a very big, high value. So that means you say what you're meant to say with as few words and as directly as possible, and that's considered a good thing. Whereas when I came to India, I realized that I was being way too direct. And I realized that here we have to pack what we're saying into some formalities and use a bit more time with relationship before we get to the topic. So for example, I come into a a business meeting in the west, in Norway, then we get straight to the point, we discuss the point, everyone says their meaning, and we make a decision and we leave the meeting. Whereas here I've realized that here, you know, it's important for me to ask something about the family, how is your health, and then we can get to the topic. So we call this in one way, in the west we read the lines, in the east we read between the lines. And a lot of what is said is actually in the air, it's in the atmosphere. You have to understand by body language, by formality, what really the message is. So that's about communication. When it comes to culture, the cultures are vastly different. And I would like to say that I've learned so much from the Indian culture. I am, after 24 years, I'm still a student of the Indian culture. Very much so. And we've learned so many beautiful values from this culture, which I feel are missing in our own culture. An example of that would be the respect for elders. There's a lot of inbuilt respect for the elders in the Asian context. We've learned to touch feet, pranam, bolna, and to receive the blessing of the elders. This is really something which we deeply love and appreciate. Then again, as I mentioned earlier, the hospitality culture, where you are served such wonderful food and treated very respectfully as a guest. And these are things we've really learned from the Indian culture and try and bring back to our Norwegian culture.
Wow, that's really nice. Question to you is, from 1999 to 2007, I think you were living in Ranikhet.
That's right.
And then you moved to Pithoragarh, and then now it's been 16 years around. What is the difference between living in Ranikhet and in Pithoragarh?
The difference, it's a differences are there. Pithoragarh is more influenced by village culture. Ranikhet has become much more of an urban culture, I would say. I think it's because of its proximity to Haldwani and to the plains. It's become a bit like that, I would say. Pithoragarh, when we first came here, we felt some differences in the culture, but we really love both places and have adjusted well to Pithoragarh.
So how did Kumaun treat you in your initial days when you came to Kumaun?
Very well. We've been always welcomed, as I mentioned, and we feel privileged to be in this place. Definitely, it's a wonderful place to be.
Definitely. One question is about your recent achievement. You know that you stepped out of your comfort zone and you taught WHO and WFO. Am I right?
WHO, the World Health Organization, and also WFP, which is the World Food Program. Yes.
So how was your experience being there, and what were some learning points for you? Was it like so much intimidating for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. So me and my wife, we started a consultancy company back
Integ.
in 2021 called Integ, where our idea is to use our experience in India to build bridges between Norway and India. This has led to some amazing assignments which we've had in the last year. Now, one of those assignments which suddenly landed on my table was to do a team building day for the World Health Organization in Delhi. And I thought I was a person who didn't get nervous, who didn't get intimidated, but I realized I just hadn't faced that level of assignment yet, which did make me feel very afraid. I prepared so hard, and as I walked into that 5-star hotel in Delhi, and the WHO were there, 35 people. They had all taken time off work to be there. I was the main trainer for the day. I was very nervous. But what I also realized is that when I came into that place and I started doing my team building there, what I realized is that one of our greatest strengths as a person is our authenticity. Not trying to be someone who we're not. Use what we have. We have to upskill ourselves. We have to always constantly try and do our research, our preparation. It has to be absolutely perfect. We can never compromise on that. But at the end of the day, we have to be authentic. We have to be ourselves. And you know, for me, doing that 8 hours of training that day, a full day of training in Delhi, it was very intimidating. Through the day, I had to speak to myself. I had a lot of self-talk, like, come on, Sindre, keep your head in the game. Yeah, keep your head in the game, stay focused. And I got through the day, and it really changed something inside of me also, where I've become much more confident in any setting, really, after that. Then I also, when I had the WFP training, I realized that I had learned a lot. I got a really nice connection with the trainees, and it was just an experience which has really helped me to grow. So I'd encourage anyone, always take any opportunity you have to get out of your comfort zone, even if it's scary, and you'll definitely grow.
Nice. So sir, my next question to you is, you know, as you know that Norway is one of the richest countries in the world.
That's right, yeah.
And also placed 7th, I think, in happiness index in
That's
the world.
Right.
So, and you've been to many places, and in many places in India, and many countries also visited. So why did you choose Kumaun?
That's a good question. And now, you know, first of all, what's happiness? How can you measure happiness? How can you have an index for happiness? It's generally built around things like social security, safety, education, these things. And of course, you know, moving from Norway has been a big deal. We're the only people we know who have lived for so long in India almost. But what happiness for me and my wife has never been to be safe, or to have the best facilities, to have luxury. Like, that does not bring you happiness, to be honest. We have a lot of people who are depressed in our country, even though they're high on the happiness index. So happiness for us is having a strong sense of purpose. Like having a life which is purpose driven. That's really, really what's highest for us. And what we found by being in Kumaun and being in this place, working within the field of with tourism, but also later with the field of education, is that we have been able to have purposeful lives where we've been able to start our own businesses. We've been able to form them however we want to form them. We've been able to impact people's journeys. We have people who have climbed Mount Everest. We've been a part of their journey. We have people who have qualified for the army, who have become flight attendants, who have become entrepreneurs. So through being a part of people's journey here in Kumaun, we've been able to have a purpose-driven life, where purpose is the highest. And for me, that's happiness. It's not where you live which brings you happiness, but it's being able to be purposeful in meaning something for other people's lives. That's really, I would say, is the deepest sense of happiness which we can find.
Wow, very nice. My next question to you, sir. And in 2007, you started an institute, a business here in Pithoragarh.
That's right, yeah.
ILC, International Learning Center. What was your heart behind it?
Yeah, the heart behind the International Learning Center was to bring people an opportunity to have exposure to something they would need for their career. Now, what we found when we came to Pithoragarh was that there was a huge interest in education in Pithoragarh. And then you've got the job market. So you've got the people educating themselves, then you've got the job market. Now there's a gap in between there. One of those gaps is spoken English, which is a skill which is needed if you're going to go for a number of jobs. Not for every job, but for many jobs, spoken English is going to be one of the door openers. So we realized that for the local people here to learn spoken English is going to be very important. Then as we started our institute on the 24th of September 2007, we started with 48 students. We also started teaching a job interview training. And this job interview training was, they had to do research on the company, we gave them a mock interview. We realized that this was also extremely powerful and extremely meaningful to equip people with the soft skills to not only be able to talk, but also how to present themselves, how to structure an answer, which questions to expect in a job interview. So that became the start of the personality development course. Later, we've developed, all of our curriculum is in-house developed, and we have developed leadership courses, teachers training courses. We have designed curriculum for colleges, and the ILC has really become a platform which trains people, it equips people, and it values people. That's been our dream from the beginning. So that's really what made us start the ILC, was identifying the gap and trying to fill it and equip people for the job market and for their lives.
Wow, really nice. Yes, sir. And my next question is, as you started it in 2007, back in that.
Yeah.
It's been 16 years. Do you
That's
have any
right.
inspirational stories from Pithoragarh that came to ILC and then changed themselves?
Many stories.
Okay.
But I'll just tell you a very recent one.
Okay.
Because we had a student who was called Suraj.
Okay.
And Suraj's dream was to become a flight attendant.
Okay.
But it was a real struggle for him because he was slightly too short.
Okay.
He tried and he tried and he tried again. And finally, he got a selection for Air India.
Wow.
He did his training and he started working for Air India. Then COVID came, and during Corona, he was in Chennai, stuck in Chennai. And my wife was conducting online classes from Norway. So my wife was getting up in the morning, teaching 6 a.m. Norwegian time for a whole year during Corona. But Suraj, he was in every class. Even if he had a flight, he came in, he would join the class. And he would never miss a class. And he really worked on developing his English, his thinking, his discussion skills. He really worked very hard. And we saw in him like a diligence towards his own education, his own skills as a person. Then one day there was interviews for Qatar Airways. Now Qatar Airways, obviously Qatar is where the previous World Cup was. It's one of the high-class airlines, which is a really good company. So he went for an interview with Qatar.
Okay.
And there were 250 interviewees, and he was the only male selected. 4 people were selected, 3 females and 1 male.
Wow.
And he's from Pithoragarh. And after speaking to him, I just talked to him a few days ago. We had him in our institute.
Is he here in Pithoragarh now?
Just for leave.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and what we realize is that, and this is maybe an encouragement for anyone listening to this podcast or YouTube video, is I believe that for many Kumaun young people, there's a good opportunity within the aviation business, that there are jobs available. You know, we're in a global recession. It's a time now where the IT jobs, last year, you were getting 60, 70 lakh packages as an IT person. This year, IT is closed.
Yeah.
There are no jobs are not like that anymore for IT. The seats are filled. So now we have to rethink again. And what I believe is a good thing for many more people to research is actually the aviation industry. There's still hiring going on there. So that would be an encouragement. But that's one story, of course, of Suraj.
There must be many stories.
And there are many stories. We've been allowed to be a part of people's journeys. Another short story I can tell you is that one day a girl called Sheetal, she came to us. And she had a passion to be a mountaineer. So I told her that, Sheetal, the day which you stand on Mount Everest, we will be one of your sponsors, and you will hold an ILC flag on the top of Mount Everest. That became my dream for her. And on the 18th of May 2019, I got a photo from Mount Everest with Sheetal standing on the top with an ILC flag.
Amazing.
And you know, for me, that's one of my life's achievements, being a part of her journey and her seeing her achievement and her dream come true.
Very nice. My next question to you, sir, as you mentioned, especially in COVID, you were not in India, then you went back and then you were in Norway. What were some learning points from COVID-19? It was like the whole world was facing its terrible.
One major lesson, that's a good question, Kumaun. And one major lesson I would say is change management.
Change management.
Yeah, because we never realize how fast the world is going to change. And we all learned that lesson from COVID. I remember 2 days before we locked the doors in the ILC. And I was driving down to Haldwani, and I was thinking to myself, what do we need to do?
Yeah.
We were hearing about Corona, and no one believed there would be a close down here in Pithoragarh or in North India or India. Then as I was like driving down, I thought, we have to go online. We have to bring all our classes online. We have to be prepared if we close that. Next day I came back to Pithoragarh. I found Zoom. In those days no one knew what Zoom was, me neither. But I found this app called Zoom. Then we trained all of our teachers how to use Zoom. And then we told them, now you train your students. All of the students got Zoom on their phone. After 2 days, our institute got closed. Within 10 minutes, we had to close our doors.
Wow.
And next morning, all of our classes were online. And this became an important lesson for me that we have to be very flexible to change. We have to have good change management. We have to have systems which are flexible to change with the times. So that would be one major lesson. Another lesson I would say would be to have good time management.
Time management.
Yeah. Because during COVID, during that year, I remember we were in our house for 6 weeks here in India during COVID without stepping out onto the road except to get milk and vegetables. I didn't go past the crossing of our house. And in one way that could have been a depressing time, it could have been an unproductive time, but we were so busy because we sat down and we planned every day. And we planned our classes, we planned our life, we worked on things, we prepared teaching, and we were involved in a whole different range of things, and our kids also. So what I also would say is like that to have good time management was a learning point from COVID, where you had the whole day, you were stuck inside. How could you make that meaningful? And I'd say those are two lessons which are good to bring through after COVID as well for our life, is to have a good change management and to have a good time management.
Beautiful answer, sir. And 2020 and 2021, the whole world was facing COVID-19. A terrible time, difficult time for all of us. But you started your Integ, I think, in 2021. Am I right?
That's right.
Yeah. So what was the inspiration behind starting Integ back then, 2021?
The inspiration behind Integ was to use the experience we have in India as a business platform to utilize the fact that we speak Hindi, we have a network of business people we know here, we understand the culture to a certain degree, and of course we've spent many years doing business, running companies here in India. So we thought, how can we use this experience to help others who want to have something done in India? How can we help them and become like a bridge between Norway and India? So that became the start of Integ, which could stand for integrity, it could stand for integration. So with Integ, we want to basically make India a possible place to source products, to outsource, to run their own business in India, to make that possible through our help. So it's very intimidating for someone who runs a business in Norway to land in the Delhi airport, to navigate their way, to meet people, to understand where to go, how to meet, what are the cultural implications, how do we communicate. So we become that bridge which helps those Norwegian companies and organizations in India. So we do services, within sourcing of products. Like we've had apps designed. We had an app designed for an electric car company, Norway's only electric car company. Their app is designed through Integ.
Wow.
We've been able to get jobs, like you mentioned, with the WHO, the WFP. Also, I've been and done due diligence checks of projects which are being run with donor money from Norway. So a multiple arena of different opportunities have come to us through Integ. But your question was about how we started it. It was, in those months when we were stuck for 13 months in Norway. And again, it's that thing of change management and time management. How could we use our time to create something new? We are spiritual people, so we were praying, we were thinking, what can we do? And that's when the inspiration came to start Integ, which we did.
Really nice.
It's a tiny, small start. It's not a big company yet, but we're moving in the right direction.
It will go for sure, sir. Yes, sir. My next question to you, since we live in this mountain region, Kumaun, and our language is actually Kumauni, and now it's not getting extinct, but less number of people are speaking Kumauni. So, sir, what would you like to say? Why is it important to stay connected to our roots, stay connected to the culture that we are living?
Yeah, I believe that you can never replace your heart language. You maybe learn a language at school, like Hindi or English. And I've heard it said that Hindi is your mother, English is the bahu, right? She needs a place in the house also. But it's our mother tongue, your mother tongue is Hindi. English is important, but I would say that Kumani is then your heart language. It's that deepest part. And you cannot separate language from culture. Language and culture, they go together. So wrapped up around and within the Kumani dialects, the 13 main Kumani dialects, and the dialect spoken here, which is Soryali, then there is a lot of culture involved. Traditions, parampara, riti rivaj, all of these things are connected with the language. Therefore, if you forget your language, you will ultimately forget parts of your culture. That's why we always try and promote Kumani culture. In our institute, we've had some programs which were to honor the Kumani culture, where the ladies came in like Pithoragarh with nut. And my wife actually has her own mantika and nut. And that's how fond we are of Kumaun. So I would encourage anyone, don't forget your heart language. You can't live without your heart.
Yes, sir. My next question to you is, back then when you didn't know how to speak Hindi, how did you manage it? Did you have any funny stories regarding the same?
Yeah, I think bada mushkil se we managed. And we have some funny stories. I remember we had one girl who cooked food in our house when we lived in Ranikhet back in the beginning. And one day I bought fish from the market. So I was standing cleaning fish and with the water, and this girl was standing beside me. And I thought maybe I could share this fish with her. Like she could take some home. So I wanted to ask her, do you eat fish? So I asked her like, क्या आप लोग मच्छर खाते हैं? And she looked at me and she was like, what are you asking me? Do we eat mosquitoes? Then I realized, that I made a mistake. So there have been many small funny incidents like that.
The last question, sir. A piece of advice you would like to give the youth of Kumaun?
The youth of Kumaun. Yeah, I mean, have good values, I would say. Values like being the best version of yourself is important. Always try and be a great person. I would say that would be my first piece of advice. Also, think about others. Like don't just focus on career, or don't just focus on education and making your own way in life. try and bring other people with you.
Wow.
Don't just develop yourself, but develop others alongside you.
Wow.
I would say, and obviously, you know, the things, stay away from drugs and smoking, alcohol, those things. Obviously, those are pieces of advice. Also, I'd say try and choose the right education. Don't throw away the critical years you have on subjects which you're not going to use. I've seen sometimes people who land in the wrong stream, and they use such a long time to find out what they're going to do that they've lost critical years of selection, and doors start closing for them. So try and use your time well, manage your time well, make a plan, make a 2-year plan, a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan. Plan your time well, and I think those would be some pieces of advice which I would tell the young people of Kumaun.
It's really very nice, sir, and thank you very much, sir, for being here.
Thanks.
It's a privilege to have you here, and it was wonderful conversations, and hope we see you soon and we'll have different conversation here. Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.